Hey there, my friends. This is Andy coming to you live from Yorba Linda, California. Had to come on a little early before I had actually scheduled it. So sorry about any confusion that you might be having. Just going live here on Instagram at the same time. And so I have to pack because I'm going out of town. I'm going to go see my son on a second graduation in the U.S. Army during the second boot camp. So I got to get going. Just did not realize I wasn't going to get everything done. So as people are joining, I'm just going ahead and get started with what I want to talk about today. And that is that lying to the students and to you is part of the plan. And this has been a greater plan that's gone on for well over a century. And I'm going to go through some of these things about why lying is important. Is because just to begin with, it's important because they have to build a scenario that creates fear in the students and the parents within the school districts across the United States. So it's not just unique to PYLUSD, of course. This is all a plan by the National Educators Association, the California Teachers Association, and the APLE, the Association of Placentia Linda Educators, as every district has, I believe every district does, that you have your national, which is the NEA, and then you have your state, whatever your state is, which is ours here in California is the CTA, and then every local district, or at least most of them, have this smaller union. Just know they're all connected. They're all the same. I've often said it's a cabal. In one of the books I'm going to be referencing calls it the mafia. And so the teachers union is a mafia organization that's not really meant for education, which I'm going to share with you some of the proof through the quotes of the people that created the NEA over a period of time, and the NEA itself. And so these lies about the country, about socialism, about ICE, about conservatives, about Christians, are the way that they begin to work on the weak-minded people that will believe them. And how do we get weak-minded people? Well, one of them is by not educating them. And so that's why it's been so important to the Teachers Association, because their goal is to create socialists, humanists, Marxist followers, because that is the goal. And I know many of you that watch me, or those of you that are against the things that I say, will say, this is all hogwash. It's not true. Well, some of you know that it's the truth. You just can't have me telling the truth. And so you call me racist and all these other things. There's other people that have been caught up in it, and they believe the lies they've been told. And I shared with you on another video about the syndrome, which is this shared psychosis, this folie à deux, which I've told you about. And that is people that believe a lie until it becomes part of their being, and now they can't get out of the lie, no matter how much truth you tell them. I'm going to share a video from a Russian KGB agent who shared this very thing. And then what you need is people that are, where is it at? Down here, where you have people either with mental health issues or disorders, personality disorders, or trauma-related vulnerabilities. Now, a trauma-related vulnerability can be simply that they went through COVID, or they're on their smartphones. That will create a vulnerability where we're at now. And so what I've called it most recently as the perfect storm. So right now we have the perfect storm of things coming together. For over a century, the education mafia, which is the teachers union, has had control over all of public education in the United States of America, and seemingly in Canada. It seems to be worse in Canada for whatever reason. But they've been able to build a very strong system of indoctrination. Now, those of people that don't get indoctrinated very easily are those that have a strong family, mom and dad who educate outside of the public education, or they have a strong faith in Jesus Christ. They're Christians. And what I'll share with you later on is that the Christians are their biggest enemy. Anybody that has faith, Catholics, Christians, are the biggest enemy to the teachers union. And they knew this early on, back in the 1800s. They knew that they had to get people and children to go away from their faith, because as long as they stayed in their faith, they were going to be impossible to indoctrinate. And so this has been a long-standing goal of the teachers unions over the hundreds of years, over the century, to take people away from their faith the best that they could. They knew that those that stayed strong in their faith, that they just didn't have any hope for them. And that has probably been one of their biggest struggles, is that in the United States, there's been not a strong, especially lately, many Christians are strong. Not all Christians are strong. Many fall into this too, and we've seen it in woke churches. We've seen it online with pastors and other people that say, let's just let them have their LGBTQ. And as a matter of fact, we'll have LGBTQ pastors. No, those are weak pastors that don't stay strong to the biblical teachings of Jesus Christ, of God, and have become weakened through the education system. So what I want to start out with is a video of my wife, who was just recently interviewed at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills on a Wednesday night service, where she talks about her experience as a Muslim working for the U.S. government for 5 different presidential administrations at a very high level. And as she was combating Islam and the jihadis, she found a very interesting aspect to what was happening over the years, is that people were able to be indoctrinated faster and faster. So listen to her interview. It's very important. She didn't say this in regards to what I'm talking about, but it is why this was happening. And so let me just share with you what she said, and then I'll come back to you on the other side. Here you go.
So we're watching this onslaught. A friend of mine told me just yesterday that what he saw in Europe over the course of 2 decades, 20 years, he has now witnessed in America in a matter of a couple of years. And those couple of years are these last couple of years.
Yes.
Last term Biden, first term Trump, the advancement of Islam is just exponentially taking off. How is this possible? How is this happening?
And it's interesting because I worked in government for 25 years, and so I was a Muslim while I was doing it. So I was watching the trends in the Muslim community, especially the trends of radicalization and the kind of rallies, the public prayers like that did not exist. So this onslaught, this invasion that we're undergoing right now, I think is a number of factors. One, it's the Marxist Islamist alliance.
Yes.
So that's existed for a very long time, but it has recently ramped up since the whole move of the left that we've seen since COVID, the whole trans movement, the LGBTQ issue. All of that has given this amazing fuel because the Muslim groups are very adaptable. So I tell people, during the time of bin Laden, the recruitment indoctrination process took about 2 years. He would take young people into these study circles and teach and indoctrinate before he could make a suicide bomber. By the time I'm in the FBI, we're looking at ISIS. Kids were radicalized in 6 weeks. So that means you were in a house in Oklahoma, a normal kid going to high school, and you went over and became a jihadi, blew yourself up in under 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now they've realized we don't even need to convert people. We just use jihadi principles to cut the heads of Christians. We just teach them these principles, kind of like the Hitler doctrine, the Marxist doctrine, the ISIS doctrine, the Al-Qaeda doctrine, and we get these people to do our dirty work for us. And this has been an explosive rise of this popularity. And couple that with massive influxes of capital. The amount of mosques that are being built, every small town that I hear from, every community that contacts me says, there's a mosque that's 15 acres, 20 acres. We don't even have that many Muslims to populate a center that large. So they're just buying, so they have the resources to buy the lands and plant these flags. These are basically outposts. As the term in Islam is called the rabat.
Yes.
It's the outpost before they're able to conquer a location. And so there's 400 in Texas, 400 in California, 330 in Texas, 200 plus in Florida, and that number just keeps growing.
Yes.
So what she's talking about there is this ability to indoctrinate people through the growth of the movement. At the same time, the indoctrination process has become easier and easier. They've gotten better at it. So the Islamists have gotten better at it. They've followed the model of the socialists, and which is the teachers union in our school system. So now they've joined forces. So you have Islam, you have the socialists, you have Marxists, you have LGBTQ. All of these organizations have now teamed up, and the ability to indoctrinate children has become easier because of the growth of all of these organizations and the money that has been going into them. The money that goes into the education system has increased by the billions every year, exponentially. And it's not to educate kids, it's to get better at indoctrination. And this has proven to be true throughout the years. One of the ways, reasons I call this the perfect storm is because with the advent of smartphones, you have more kids, more young people that are now having mental issues that are making them more vulnerable. And one of the books that you need to read is called The Anxious Generation. The Anxious Generation is a fantastic book. It's one of the newer books that I've been recently reading. And I'm just going to show you a quick graph. It's a pretty big book. Oops, sorry about that. It's a pretty big book, as you can see. But I'm going to show you one of the graphs that I have here from the book. And that is, you see at the beginning of the gray area in 2010, that's the advent of the smartphone. And this is mental illness among college students. And so you can see the sudden uptick. Previous to this, it was just pretty flat. And then coming into 2010, you can see this quick uptick of anxiety and depression. And it says the percentage of U.S. undergraduates with each of several mental illnesses, rates of diagnosis of various mental illnesses increased in 2010 among college students, especially for anxiety and depression. And so the advent of the phone have given them more vulnerable people. And then you get into high school and between the ages of 12 and 17. And with girls in particular, in the advent of 2010, you see a 145% increase in girls of major depression. So when we're looking at the demographics of what we see out there at, say, the ICE protests or the from the river to the sea when it comes to Gaza, you see a lot of young women. And this ties directly in to what I was telling you about some time ago in regard to shared psychosis, the folie à deux. It requires, when people begin to believe a lie and hear it over and over and over again, and it's coming from the teachers in the classroom, when it's come from social media, when now it's coming from even parents who also suffer from the same syndrome, is that they hear this lie over and over again and it becomes part of their life. And there's nothing you can do to change their mind. And you can tell them the truth. You can show them the truth. You can show them facts. You can do whatever you can, but they're not willing to change their mind. And here I'm going to show you a video of a KGB agent who shares this phenomenon. And this goes back, I think this video dates back into the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But here's the KGB agent talking about a person that's in this syndrome, that's in this place where they've been indoctrinated so fully that no matter what you tell them, they're not going to believe it.
Recognized as...
Oh, sorry, wrong video. Hold on, let me bring it down. I want to make sure I do this in order. I'm not sure how I did that, but I did. All right, hold on. Let me find the correct video. Oh, here it is. All right, here we go. 1 second, got to share my screen. I believe it's this one. Here we go. All right.
Information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized
is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization.
So demoralization comes with depression. If they are depressed, if they are mentally ill, if they have anxiety, if they're suffering from all these things, then it makes it much easier to indoctrinate them. And then when you get them to a certain state, it's impossible to show them the truth. You can show them the videos of October 7th of when the terrorists went into Israel and murdered, raped, cut the heads off of people, cut the heads off of babies, murdered babies in front of their mothers, murdered mothers and fathers in front of the children. Even if when you show them videos because they exist, they still won't believe it because they've been so indoctrinated. And those people that have been weakened through the anxiety and depression that was brought on by smartphones, social media, and again by parents not engaging with them and allowing it to happen. So where else do we see this? We see this in the LGBTQ or the trans movement. And one of the most disturbing things that I saw in one of the recent lawsuits that a young person who had transitioned won the lawsuit is that when I was reading through it, it said that the mother allowed the cutting off of her breast because she was told by a doctor, a trusted person apparently, that if she didn't do that, that her daughter would kill, or that her daughter would kill herself. I get this so confused. That her daughter would kill herself. And so now we have not only the child, we have the mother in a place where she's even, she probably was told by somebody, I hope somebody in her world told her, this is crazy that you are willing to chop the breasts off of your daughter. Or in the case of a boy who wants to be a girl, that you're going to allow them and you're going to support them chopping their penis off, that they go through with it, even though their entire life they probably believe that anybody that cut off their penis or their breasts because they thought they were another sex up until that point thought it was crazy. Like what parent would allow their child under 18 and support it and drive them there and tell the doctor, hey, I'll sign the waiver as a parent? Who would do that? And that is, to me, that is mind-boggling. Instead of just saying no, like we did to our daughter, we had one daughter, we have 6 kids. One of our daughters at some point came to us when she was 13 and says, I'm a boy. And we just said, no, you're not. And she continued with this idea that she was going to be a boy. And we just kept telling her no. We pulled her out of school, out of public school, because they were no help. They had a counselor that told us that we needed to affirm her or she was going to kill herself. And we said, we're not affirming her. You're crazy. And we said, no. And she said she wanted to be called this boy name. And we said, no, we're not calling you boy name. And then we went through the process of saying no, taking away all of her social media, taking away her computers, her phone. She had no phone, no computers, no social media, took her out of public school. And guess what? She didn't kill herself and she went back to being a girl. As what 90 some odd, I think it's in the 99%, 95 to 99%, that most children that when they go through this temporary mental illness of thinking that they're in the wrong body, that they go back to being the person that they were born. And that they don't kill themselves. If you don't do that, they end up getting out of it and they end up going back to who they were and they begin to thrive as long as you continue with being with them and supporting them and reminding them of who God made them. And that, so that's, again, that's just another lie that the teachers union wants to tell you. It's all over their website, the NEA, the CTA. That's all they talk about is LGBTQ. They just want to continue to indoctrinate kids into believing that there's more than 2 sexes, that a boy can become a girl and a girl can't become a boy. That's a lie. That men can get pregnant, that there should be tampons in men's bathrooms. All those things are lies that are told over and over again. And how do we get there? It's through this indoctrination process of telling this lie over and over again. People that are supposed to be trusted adults are feeding this information to them on a continuous basis. You add to it smartphones and social media, and it begins to take hold, and then it becomes very difficult to get them out of it. So I want to bring you back to the school board meeting, because this is back part 4 from the school board meeting from the previous week that this kind of continues on. So I want to talk about why Quintero and Anderson and Buck and the superintendent don't want politics taken out of the school. It's because the unions want their politics in the classroom. They don't want that taken out. So we couldn't have on a resolution, as I shared with you in the previous video, in the resolution that said we need teachers to go back to teaching the subject matter in the curriculum and stop with all the nonsense in regard to politics or LGBTQ or ICE hatred or law enforcement hatred, whatever those things, though there's just no place for it in the classroom. But Quintero, Anderson, Buck, and the superintendent said, no, we want that in the classroom. Even though education is bad, we don't need to worry about that. Somehow we'll get that back on track, which they have no intention of doing that. But they do, more importantly, they wanted the politics, their politics, again, is most important, that you understand that, is if you have anything that's other than that politics, that can't be in there. If somebody came into the classroom with a MAGA hat or Charlie Kirk freedom shirt, they would make the kid go home and change. But if you come with an LGBTQ shirt, that can be in the classroom. If you come in with, something that says men can get pregnant, that's okay. You can, and they'll have a whole discussion in math class about that, even though it has nothing to do with math. A U.S. history teacher at El Dorado named Jenny Bremer, she can tell you that Abraham Lincoln was a racist and he had nothing to do with abolition of slavery. That she can do. But if you were to go in there and say, no, that's not really true. If you went in there and says, hey, did you know that Democrats are responsible for Jim Crow laws? Did you know that Democrats are responsible for creating the KKK? Did you know the Democrats are responsible for the arrest of Martin Luther King when he was trying to, speak about, the freedom of blacks? That it was Democrats that had him arrested and it was Democrats that shot him? No, you can't say any of that. That's not allowed. That truth, those are facts, that can't be in there. Only if you can say that conservatives are racist, only if you can say that Christians are horrible people, those things can be in. Do you see the point I'm getting? So I'm going to make another point here. This is in Florida, but it's happening all over the United States. It's not just happening in Florida. Of course, it's happening here in California. But they wanted to have a TPUSA event and a club at this particular school district, and here we have proof that this is not allowed in schools. We had it here at PYLUSD, where a TPUSA chapter was going to bring a speaker to Yorba Linda High School, and oh my gosh, they lost their stuff. The teachers union and the teachers and the community that followed the teachers union, no, you can't have that. That's horrible. And it continues to this day. But here's an example of what happens when it happened here in Florida.
Vulnerable population. They are in critical developmental stages and especially susceptible to influence. For this reason, safeguarding measures, parental involvement, and transparency are essential. All Board of Education members in this room are mandated reporters under state law, as I am. Based on the circumstances surrounding this event, a report was made to Child Protective Services. All of this was provided along with.
Thank you for your comment.
Child Protective Services, because
Okay, sorry. Damn, Bongino's going to go on a rant there. But do you see, there was going to be a TPUSA event. That's when she was saying the event. That's what it was, a TPUSA event. And they reported it to Child Protective Services. That we were talking about kids walking out of school and saying, hey, should kids be really walking out of school in the middle of the school day? Can't they protest before school or after school? and they said we were racist, and they said, hey, the First Amendment, they have the First Amendment right to march out and walk out in school, out of school if they want to, and they should be able to do that. But you have a TPUSA, and they go, you can't do that. And this particular representative of the teachers union for this particular school district, or a teacher at the school district, says, I'm a mandatory reporter, and I had to report it to Child Protective Services because they were having a TPUSA event. So again, when I talk about Quintero, Anderson, and Buck and the superintendent, they want politics in the classroom, just their politics. You can't have an opposing thought or a message or an event. None of that stuff is allowed. So understand, when they're fighting for something, it is to continue the indoctrination so that you can have men in the girls' bathrooms and men in the girls' locker rooms, so that you can have men compete against girls in girls' sports. That's okay. But if you say anything against that, then you are a racist and a homophobe, apparently. So I got to see what this video is. I forgot what it is because I have another one I want to show you here. Oh, so yeah, I'm not going to play it. It's just the same thing that I just said. It's another it's a press conference from them wanting to do a walkout, and that it should be allowed, and anybody tries to stop it, you're a racist. But that's from that very same school district that just said that they called Child Protective Services. All right, so this is a long-standing plan, and that's why I call this lying to students and parents is the plan. So many people think that this just started, that CRT is brand new, that SEL, social emotional learning, is brand new, that all these things are just unique to what's been happening lately. No, these things have been going on for over 100 years, and it has been ongoing for the 100 years or more. And this has been part of the plan. This education system. So those of you that I'm 63, I have 6 kids. I know I have a kid in elementary school, junior high, and high school. I know. But my dad fought in World War II. And I believe every war, as far as I can think, that the United States is involved in, it's been to fight Nazis, communists, Marxists. It's been to fight, Islamists, jihadis, and we've fought this from our lands and wanted it out of our lands. The only place we've not fought it to get it out of is our education system, and it's been in our education system since the 1800s, and we've done nothing to fight it. We've had men and women killed in battle to fight against it, yet we've allowed it to continue in our education system. Do you want the proof? I'm going to give you the proof. So if we go all the way back, now I'm going to tell you, here's a couple books I'm going to share. I already told you about the anxious generation, which is our current kids since 2010. We have this great book called the NEA, the Trojan Horse in American Education. This is a fantastic book. It was published in 1984. So again, this was published in 1984. And you're going to say, wow, this is happening all the way back then. This is why we have parents at the school board meetings that are fighting for socialism, that are fighting for ICE out. When we've had no ICE in our school district, we've had a chase that went from Anaheim into Placentia that killed a man, a 50-something-year-old man, a 60-year-old man, and then he ran with a gun. The suspect ran into the area of a school in Placentia and in Fullerton with a gun, and ICE chased him. That's the only thing that we've had as far as ICE. Don't believe Marilyn Anderson. We said, we've seen our neighbors arrested by ICE. No, you haven't, because it's not happening. Then the other book, which is a fantastic book, this is one of my newest favorites. It's an indoctrination, indoctrinating our children to death. Indoctrinating our children to death. A fantastic book. I'll be showing you a couple of paragraphs from that really quick. So from the first book is Horace Mann, dates back all the way to 1837. He was Secretary of Massachusetts Board of Education. And so this is where it starts and has continued. This has not changed. I want you to know that this is very important, that you understand that it started then, but it's not been taken out of our education system. Horace Mann's attitude toward other people's children was bizarre, even by today's standards. In 1867, lectures and annual reports on education, that's his writings, that's Horace Mann's writings, Mann claimed that those engaged in the sacred cause of education were entitled to look upon all parents as having given hostages to our cause. In other words, their children are our hostages for our cause. Shortly before his appointment as Education Secretary of the United States, he gushed at the mere thought of having the future minds of such multitudes dependent in some way to him. So Horace Mann was a socialist. He wanted the kids to be like the Soviet Union, educated, much like that KGB agent who was talking about how they used to indoctrinate their community there in Russia, in the Soviet Union. And Horace Mann was a follower of the Russian way of doing it, the Soviet Union way of indoctrinating people into communism, socialism, and Marxism. And Horace Mann loved it. And that's what he wanted to bring into our education system. That's how crazy this is. And then you have John Dewey, about the same time, but a little after. He was a follower of Horace Mann and a supporter of Horace Mann's work. In his 1898, again, that's 1898 essay, The Primary Education Fetch, Dewey argued strongly against then heavy emphasis on reading, writing, and arithmetic in the younger years to produce highly literate, independent-minded individualists with faith in God and freedom. That was not conducive to a collectivist's utopia, obviously. So that's when it begins to start. So up until then, children in the country, in the United States of America, were highly educated. They were all reading the Bible. Many of the universities were Bible-centered universities, like Yale University, Harvard University. These were biblical universities at the time, and reading the Bible was an important part of education, but it also taught children how to read. And then when they would write, a thesis on a particular book of the Bible, it would teach them how to write and critically think. And he knew that he had to dumb that down. He did. That was the worst thing for collectivism, socialism, humanism, all the things that he wanted to push. And so they needed to make an impact on that and begin to dumb kids down and put less emphasis on reading, writing, and arithmetic, because as soon as he did that, they would be easier to move into a belief of socialism and Marxism. John Dewey goes on, an astute operator, Dewey recognized that the liberty-minded and overwhelmingly Christian teachers, taxpayers, and parents of America of that era would never knowingly support his radical educational and political ambitions if they understood the change must come gradually, he said. There's some words that are not completely done there. To force it unduly would compromise its final success, favoring a violent reaction. So he knew that if the parents knew what he was doing, that it had to be secret, and it had to be kind of slowly pushed into the education system, or else there would be a violent uprising of the parents saying, hey, what are you doing? So this had to come slowly over the years. This is why it's taken a while to get to a place where we're just seeing it everywhere. Max Horkheimer, who was the director of Institute for Social Research, one of the ways in which the Frankfurt School operatives, and this is what they brought over to the United States. So the Frankfurt School, everything they were doing there was brought into the United States, and academics advanced their desired social change via education was through so-called critical theory. You thought critical theory was new, didn't you? In his 1937 work, Traditional and Critical Theory, ISR director Max Horkheimer argued that critical theory, a neo-Marxist tool used to demonize the market system, Christianity, and Western civilization, was aimed at bringing about social change and exposing the alleged oppression of people by capitalism. So here's where you begin to see that they have to demonize capitalism, because again, when people are working hard, when people are earning money, when people are being fulfilled through their work, that is bad for socialism. You can't have that. And so in the Frankfurt School in Germany, they had to bring that over to the United States and kind of replicate what they were doing in our educational system. So you see how each one of the things, take God, take learning, arithmetic, reading, writing, how to think, take those out of the education, reduce them down, and then begin to teach them how horrible capitalism is. And you begin to see how this process has worked over the years. Let me just make sure this is the one I just had up. Yeah. And so as we go further, Max Horkheimer says, another useful tool for undermining freedom in traditional society was the 1950 work of key Frankfurt School theorist known as the authoritarian personality. These social researchers claimed to discover that the traditional American male and father was actually an authoritarian because, among other reasons, he held traditional values, thus the patriarchy, and the traditional family among the most important barriers to tyranny, came under relentless attack as a precursor to fascism. Public schools were viewed as tools to combat this alleged problem, and they did so vigorously. So now you see this next stage, and you recognize it, right? You recognize the feminization of boys and the demonization of toxic masculinity. This really begins to take hold through movies, commercials, and you began to see it, right? You began to see the fathers were the dumb guy in the household in many of the sitcoms. You see in the commercials, the dad was the dumb guy. And then you begin to see the feminization and the fight against what they were calling toxic masculinity. So you see all these things begin to come in stages. That's the 1950s. And as time goes on into the 1980s, you begin to see all of these things begin to take hold. And then you see the fall and the decline of Christianity and Catholicism. And you begin to see the churches begin to change and begin to go silent, because now they are feeling pressured that this is the way the world is. And when a church becomes worldly, the church becomes non-essential, or not effective into spreading the word of God, because the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says the men are leaders, that the men must lead the family. The man is in charge of the wife and the home, that the children need to honor their father, the children need to honor their mother. You see the combat, that there's a conflict. You can't have both at the same time. And so as this indoctrination begins to move in, you begin to see churches kind of, they're teaching our kids that it's toxic to be masculine. And so let's leave those teachings out of our message. Let's go along with that. Men and men and women can get married. The traditional marriage is no longer important. And you see how these things begin to work over a period of time and really begin to weaken what will make it very difficult for the socialists to indoctrinate children that come from a traditional family. This is why you saw BLM really come against the nuclear family, because they brought in and fought for LGBTQ, along with the nonsense of what they were talking about, the blacks in our community, that they're oppressed and that all white people are the oppressor. And you work on these weak minds in our community, and it begins to work. You probably had some friends or some family that said, I can't associate with you anymore because you're a Christian, or because you voted for President Trump. That's very offensive and it hurts my feelings. And, I feel bullied when you tell me the truth. I feel like you're not hearing me, or you're not affirming me. And you really begin you see these weak people. I tell my kids all the time, don't come and tell me you've been bullied. The only time that you're bullied is when you are allowing yourself to be bullied. If somebody's telling you you're fat, I go, look at you, you're not fat. Somebody tells you you're ugly, you're not ugly. That you're stupid. I tell all my kids all the time, I said, you're perfectly made. You are perfectly made. You are smart. You are handsome. You are beautiful. And don't pay attention to what anybody else says. And they've been kids have attempted to bully them, and they come and they laugh, and I pick them up at school. Oh yeah, some guy was trying to bully me today. And they just start laughing. But no, when you're weak-minded, when somebody just simply tells you the truth, now you feel like you're being bullied. Right? If you come to believe that men can get pregnant, and you say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Men can't get, oh, you're offending me. Even they may not be going to the way of, being confused about their sex. It's just that they believe that men can get pregnant. And when you say, no, they can't, then now they feel bullied. They're weakened because everything's been weakened. Everything, their thought process has been weakened because now they believed a lie. And if anybody comes and tells you the truth, now you have become the oppressor. Just because you know facts and you know science and you know things. We saw it during the time when the parents were actually masking their kids. And I was going, what are you, mad? And yeah, we saw parents masking their kids, their little kids on planes, like put these little masks on there. I go, are you crazy? Why are you trying to put a mask on your kid? And then it came to the vaccine, and people are giving vaccine to their kids. I go, what, are you crazy? But parents were falling into this place of, oh, I don't want to be bullied. I don't want to be called a murderer because I didn't give my child a vaccine. What are you, crazy? But that's because they've been weakened. They were weakened through this. They were weakened through social media. They were weakened the same way that some kids were weakened. But this has worked. This is why we have so many adults who are weakened, because they've gone through the same educational system where they have been indoctrinated to believe that men should not be strong, that math, reading, and writing aren't that important, that being a Christian is homophobic, that being a Christian is misogynistic, that voting for a particular person means that you're a racist. And they began to believe the things themselves. And so now here we have parents masking their kids and giving them a vaccine, and letting them, when they sit down, they can take their mask off. When they stand up, they have to put the mask on. Just really stupid, amazing, incredibly amazing stupidity during a strong period of time. But we saw it. We saw how many people are infected by this mind virus. The mind virus is real, by the way. All right, let me continue. I went on a little rant there. And so now we get, let me make sure I'm at the right one. Yeah, so now we get to the National Educators Association. And this is from the book called NEA, Trojan Horse, and American Education. In American Education. So the NEA says, as far as the NEA is concerned, the commission's report, there was a commission's report done, I believe it was in 1983, I think. And so this report says, the commission report is a license to plunder the American taxpayer. And if anyone thinks that more money in the hands of the present educational leadership will give us anything but more of what we have now, he is deluding himself. The record speaks for itself. In a booklet entitled Local, State, and Federal Roles, issued by the NEA in December 1983, we are told NEA is no newcomer to educational reform movements. Organized teachers have been involved in every reform effort in education in this country. In 1911, 1924, 1934, 1954, and 1974. What the booklet fails to add is that all of these reforms deliberately created the tide of mediocrity. They want our kids to be mediocre, not brilliant. That now threatens our very future. And so the NEA is not about to rescind any one of them, because that's their goal, is to make them mediocre or dumber. On the contrary, everything the NEA says and does indicates that it intends to carry these reforms to their ultimate goal, a socialist, humanist society controlled by educators and behavioral scientists. And lastly, if money were the answer, our problem would have been solved long ago. For no nation in history has pumped more of its wealth into education than this one, and no people has been more generous to and trusting its educators. But unfortunately, that trust has been abused with cynicism, arrogance, and greed. That only one outcome of a spirit of pure, unadulterated malevolence. And so what the book is stating is that through this report, the NEA felt that they can continue this process of indoctrination and dumbing down of kids, that this is important to make them mediocre, not intelligent, not smart, to those that will fall. Now, again, there are kids that get through school and they get high ranking scores, but you'll notice that quite often it's Asian kids or kids that have parents that are highly involved and take them into extended courses or spend time with them teaching them home. I have classes that I give my kids here to teach them, true U.S. history. I have man classes that I give my boys about what it means to be a man, because I know they're not going to get that in school. And so when you have parents that in spite of what they're being taught at school, that you come and correct some of that nonsense, like being told that Abraham Lincoln was a racist and that he had nothing to do with abolition, and that the savior of this country are Democrats, liberal, and these organizations like BLM, that you have to, as a parent, teach them the truth. Those things aren't true. It's never been true. And here are the facts. And you show them the facts and you teach them the facts. But those kids tend to make it out of the public school system alive and with intelligence and go on to work. My son, one of my sons, I have 3 sons, like I said, he's 19, he's in the U.S. Army, and he went from graduation to the U.S. Army. Prior to that, he had a job installing doors at a door company. I have a junior high school girl who is working. She's been working since the beginning of her junior year and worked a little bit of her sophomore year. She now has a car. I have another daughter who began working as a senior in high school, and she continued to work, and now she's in university. She's at Arizona Christian University. That's the one who had a little bit of confusion for a period of time. She's now at the Arizona Christian University. And so it's when your involvement as a parent is in getting rid of the nonsense that is being taught by the NEA and the CTA and all the rest of them, your kids will get through it and they will thrive. It's unfortunately you have parents that are also indoctrinated, that we see what we see. We see some, many kids walking out. We see some kids going up and speaking about ICE out when we have no ICE in the PYLUSD whatsoever. They've never gone in any school. Marilyn Anderson thinks that apparently ICE has gone into a school and drug kids out because she said that we've experienced it. You didn't experience it. That goes back to the syndrome that I was telling you about. They begin to believe lies. They begin to believe something happened that didn't happen. And so you need to be involved. You need to show up at school board meetings, and this is not going to change anytime soon. So I hope this has been helpful, kind of taking you through the history. Again, my wife spoke at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, primarily on the Islamists taking over this country and the danger. Islam is one of the biggest dangers to our country right now that a lot of people aren't even aware of. I would go to Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills on YouTube, look for last Wednesday, this most recent last Wednesday. What would that have been? It's the 17th. Shoot, it was like 4 or 5 days ago. I can't even tell you. Make sure and go watch that. Her name's Hedy Amiramati Falco, and you'll learn all about the dangers of Islam. And again, it coincides with the socialist takeover and the things that are happening in our country as far as socialism is concerned. But make sure and watch that broadcast from Wednesday night service. All right, my friends, that was a lot, and I wanted to make it as quickly as possible to get as much information and keep it as short as possible. So I hope all that was helpful to you. Make sure and tell your friends and share, and again, show up at school board meetings and see what's going on. This is happening in our school district, and it's happening for a very long time. All right, my friends, that's it. Oh, my son, I'm just learning that my audio is bad. I don't know how my audio is bad. I got a brand spanking new computer. Sorry about that. I'll have to check it out. If it was really, really bad, maybe I'll have to do it again. All right, my friends. Love you guys. God bless. Take care.